got nothing to lose, I'm all in. Walking the edge, don't fall in.
We've got nothing to lose. We're all in. The time is ours, and we're changing. Amazed, surprised, transformed with no compromise. This is the Game-Changing Podcast, where people deserve to win, where magic moments shape our destiny, and where insights from the world's greatest performers in business, sports, and personal development bring you to the edge and change your game. Please welcome your host, Anissa Acker.
How fabulous. I have got you here today. My guest today is Jan Hargrave, and holy shit, I could go on and on and on about you with her. She is, I'm going to have to let her talk about herself because I'm excited. But what I will say is I met her at Tony Robbins Leadership Academy, and out of everybody, and I've traveled with Tony Robbins for a year and a half in his Platinum Partnership Program, out of everybody, out of every event, she's my favorite. And the reason she's my favorite is she helps all of us. Well, first, I see a lot of energy, and gosh, I love her. So if you get to see us on video, we kind of are like soul sisters. We like got the right vibe, the right connection. Beyond that, though, she has this amazing ability to help you understand what language you're saying to another through your body language, and also what someone else is saying to you, not only with their words, their body language, and alongside of that, their tone of voice. Right. And Jan, please introduce yourself, because she's got a new program that helps all of us with this Zoom stuff that we're doing that is going to step up your game, hence game changing. Jan, please introduce yourself.
You have titled your show exactly correct, because this is a game changer, but you are correct. I'm Jan, and I'm a body language expert. So what I typically do is that I study how a person moves his hands, and then his arms, and then his eyes, and then his shoulders. And then I interpret that, and I tell you exactly what's on his mind. I am involved in jury selection, if you remember. So I pick juries, I train witnesses. So there's a really serious side to what I do. And I specialize in how to tell when someone's telling a lie versus how to tell when someone's telling the truth. Because if you study someone's nonverbals enough, there are certain gestures that people do with their hands every time they're uncomfortable and every time they're being dishonest with you. And then there are certain gestures that people do with their hands when they're being really, really honest with you. So the way that I got into this event, this whole thing with body language, I was simply sitting in a graduate psychology class, and I had a really fun professor. And every few days he would walk in and he would just point at one of us and he would say, "I know what you're thinking." Another day, come back and look at someone else. "Oh, I know what you're thinking." Another day, come back and say, "Oh, I know what you're thinking." So he kept doing that to us. And then one day he said to me, "Jan, I know what you are thinking." And I thought, how can that old fool know what I'm thinking? Because it always wasn't too pretty. So he told us about body language. So I said, "You mean I can figure someone else out by the way they move their hands and their arms?" And he said, "Oh yeah," he said, "you can do it." And I was dating someone at the time. So I said this simple question to him. I said, "So you mean I can telling me the truth or lying to me when he says, 'I love you, Jan'?" And he said, "Oh yeah, you can do it." I said, "I need to learn this stuff." So I just said, what an advantage I would have all my life. I could figure out if my boyfriends were lying to me. So at first I just started to study because I thought it was fun. And then it became really, really serious information for me. But I'm really pleased that you like the study of it and that you realize that the seriousness of really making ourselves being better able to say yes or say no to someone. If you can read not only the words they're telling you, but read their body language, then I think you are more secure with your decisions when you commit to someone or you negotiate with someone.
And how relevant with what you just said is that now more than ever, where all we have are these little screens in front of us. So now we don't even have the full body speaking to us.
Right.
We literally have from here up.
Right. Well, some secrets. So when this all happened in March, I thought, well, how will people really use nonverbal? But I realized, and I went back through some of my old research, it's almost easier to read someone now on these virtual screens. And I'll teach you some of the secrets of it in just a few minutes, but it's almost easier to read other people's nonverbals now that we're on these virtual screens. So what was happening when I first did the research on this and what it was saying on the internet and studies that we did with body language is that it was taking about 2 weeks of virtual conversations to be as socially grounded as you used to be able to get with one handshake. You know, remember when we shook hands with someone, we could tell how confident they were, how nervous they were they sincere or insincere? We cannot shake someone's hand now, so we have to try to make a connection like we used to make with a handshake during a virtual conversation. So it was saying that it was taking 2 weeks to make that serious connection. But if you have a little bit of training in nonverbal virtual communications, you can probably make it within 2 virtual communications with someone. You can be as socially grounded as you were with that handshake. So think about what all the research to this entailed. Think of your television anchors, how when they present, you almost feel like they're talking with you. Excuse me. That is the same kind of training that I give now on a virtual screen, because you have to feel like it's that producer or that anchor person talking with you. So there are certain ways you can put your shoulders, your head, your hands that can make you really appear, because you want to appear really confident, really sincere, really likable. You want to show warmth even during these virtual conversations. So there are some secrets that people can use. But you're doing pretty okay already, Anissa. Your body is good.
Like, you know why? I'm all ears, and I have the benefit of seeing you guys right now. Yeah. So I'm you have my attention, and therefore I am confident you have our listeners' attention on how to change the game. And I definitely wish to get to that. I also want to share some of your magic that I know that you've done already that we kind of just glossed over and went to giving of your gifts, but let's highlight how you got to even this point with all of your gifts, please. And I can pick a few of my favorites. Please start with your favorites, because we'll see if we share the same. If not, I will gladly add some in.
Okay, so to kind of give a background of how I got into this, because people say, how do you become a body language expert? So, it happened for me. I was starting to do this research. At first, it was just fun. And then I realized there was a seriousness about communicating nonverbally. So then from those initial minor research papers I did, then it became major research for me. So my thesis for my second degree is in body language, and my dissertation, my third degree, is also in nonverbal. But I am a business major and I'm a psychology minor. So during the day, I've always taught business law, economics. But then at the university where I was teaching, it's the University of Louisiana in Lafayette, Louisiana, where I went to college. But later on was employed by them. So I taught at University of Louisiana for several years. I live here in Houston, and now I still teach at University of Houston. But my college, knew that I was teaching business courses during the day and wanted to start a night school. So they came to me and they said, Jan, why don't you write a curriculum so that we can offer it at our night school for local attorneys to help them read people better, to pick better juries. So not knowing how to say no, I just said yes. And I wrote this curriculum and people started taking this class. So it's always good to say yes. So
I would bring them in. Love that. Everybody says, say yes. My prior game changer, guess what he said? Say yes.
Say yes.
Say
yes. I know we say yes. It can end up making a whole living for you. So not knowing what I was doing, I just said yes. And so I wrote this curriculum. And so I would bring those students in, and it was primarily, think of this, I've been doing this about 20 years. It was only criminal justice majors years ago and pre-law majors who were interested in body language. But nowadays, I don't think it matters what you do for a living. You have to be interested in how to know what your body projects to another when they first see you. Because first impressions are formed within 2 to 7 seconds of someone seeing you. And this is what happens. Once you make a first impression of someone, it is very difficult to change that. So if someone sees you and they don't like you at first, it's really tough for them to change that category and pretend that they like you in the end. So Going back to my class, so I would teach them how to spot liars, how to spot truth tellers, how to spot confidence, how to spot nervousness. I would teach this all semester. I also do handwriting analysis. I don't know if you remember that, but because it's a big part of body language, I would teach them how to analyze, because we can pick an entire jury just from someone's handwriting. That's how much it says about you. I also do facial analysis that, we look at the shape of your lips and the arches in your eyebrows. It's primarily the texture of your skin that lets us know how lenient you are in the courtroom. So then I would teach this all semester. Then at the last class meeting every semester, I had to come up with a final exam. And I thought, what kind of final exam would be best to see if they had learned? And there was an old TV program called To Tell the Truth. Old TV program. Now they have it coming back. I think Anthony Anderson hosts on Sunday nights. So what I would do on the last night of class is I would put a TV program in my classroom called To Tell the Truth. So I would bring in 3 new individuals into my room, but out of the 3, 2 had to be imposters and 1 was of a true profession, because I wanted to see if my class could catch who was lying. So the first semester that I taught it, on that last night, I had brought out a nun. I had gone to a Catholic school when I grew up. So I had a friend who was a nun. So I said to her, I said, come to my class on this night, but do not wear your nun's habit. Just wear a regular suit. Then I looked for 2 other ladies who looked a bit nunly also. So as each one came in, I would say, well, who are you? And the first would say, well, I am Sister Mary Teresa. And second would say, no, 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 I am Sister Mary Teresa. Third would say, I am the real Sister Mary Teresa. So think what was going on. Then my class could ask them questions. Maybe one class member said to one of them, how many beads are there on a rosary? Or does the priest really drink the wine? So while my class was asking them questions, they were looking at the body language of the 3 ladies, and I had taught them how to spot a liar. So during the course of the questioning, the 2 imposters, of course, did some of the lying gestures, and that's how I could tell if they had learned that semester, they could spot who the real Sister Mary Teresa was. So you understand how it got started for me. Then from that, local groups would say, oh, you need to come do this for our Rotary Club, our Kiwanis Club, and I would go do it for no money. I would just go do this little speech on body language, not even knowing you could end up earning money from it. And then it ended up, it went kind of crazy. I just started doing it, then people kept calling me and they realized the value of it. Because when I first started researching it, people kind of snickered and didn't think that body language was a serious area till we had these big major trials. So we had OJ's trial, which I did input on that. I went on to John and Patsy Ramsey's case. I went on to Scott Peterson's case, went on to Casey Anthony's case. All of these big cases, that's where you got the impression of what is a jury consultant. And that's what I do. I'm a jury consultant. So when those wordings came out, then they started looking at body language a little bit more seriously. And just last night, or night before last, I was watching NBA, and even the announcers are saying, look at their body language when they're walking away from the team huddle, or if I'm watching NFL. So people are always talking about it. And tonight is the first debate between the presidential candidates. So you know that I will be watching the debates, and tomorrow I'm going to report on it for several TV stations. So then from the research I did, that's how I started working for ABC and NBC and CBS. They kept asking me to come on and report on someone's body language. The first one I ever did was Bill Clinton's body language when he was in the Monica Lewinsky's scandal. So look, let's do this, me and you. Let's do this little experiment, Anissa. Just put your right hand up. And pretend that you're in the courtroom, and everyone listening, just put your right hand up and freeze it. And just like you would be saying, I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So when I look at you, raise your hand up, there are 5 behaviors I notice. And that behavior that I notice about you tells me something about your personality. So don't move your hand at all, just freeze it. So the 4 things I look for, some people put their hand up and their fingers are wide apart. You have your hand up and your fingers are tight together. Some people put their hand up and they bend their fingers forward a bit, so I'll explain that. And some people put their hand up and then bend their fingers backward for a bit. So keeping your hand up, let me tell you what each one is. When the fingers are really wide apart and the hand is straight up, this is called a readily type of honesty. This person typically will tell us the whole truth because they're so frightened to be in the courtroom. So this is the first one. The second one, like your hand is with your fingers all together, this is called an analytical honesty. So this person, like you, will tell us the truth, but we will have to pull it out of you. The third one, my fingers were bent forward. You know that anytime someone bends the fingers forward in the courtroom, it says they're probably going to try to lie to us. So you might want to watch for people who do that. And then the fourth one, I bent my fingers backwards. And sometimes people will do this, but when someone bends the fingers backwards, it says that they will try to bend over backwards to get you to believe them, but will be typically telling you a lie. So now you can put your hand up, back down. So Anissa, the great thing is this. Next time you have a conversation with someone, even if it's on a virtual screen, just say to them, can you put your right hand up and tell me that everything you're going to tell me is the truth? And look to see, are their fingers wide apart? Are their fingers tight together? Are their fingers bent forward or fingers bent backwards? It's kind of a small experiment, but it does tell you some things.
Game changer, because you know what I can do, Jan? Listen, I've got game changers coming on here, right?
Right.
This is going to be my first practice. Instead of the Pledge of the Allegiance, instead of the national anthem, put your right hand up. Yes.
And just say to them, put your right hand up and just say, I really like you, Anissa. And that's all you need to have them say. And then you look to see how the hand is up, and you can see if they're really liking you, if they're just nervous about what they're going to talk about that day. It's kind of a cool little experiment. So the first time I did body language for a major newspaper was Bill Clinton. It was a New York Post, and he was testifying in the Monica Lewinsky case. But look, when he put his right hand up to say, I promise, his fingers were all bent forward. I said, oh my gosh, this is going to be a rough day for old Bill. So then from that's when I started reporting on every presidential nominee there is. And then industry, realized, well, this is really important for business. So then I brought everything that I had studied about courtroom work, and I brought that into the business sector, because dishonesty gestures in the courtroom are still dishonesty gestures in a negotiation. Honesty gestures, it just ended up writing the books. And once I wrote the books, then did Montel shows and Ricky Lake shows and Maury, all those crazy shows, girl. They were comparing me to a lie detector test. So let's say you'd have a couple on the show, and she would say, I think he's cheating on me, or he would say, I think she's cheating on me. So then I would give the findings, and I'd say, well, I think she's the one telling the truth. And then they'd put these people on a lie detector test to see if my findings would equate to the lie detector test. Nervous conditions for Jan, but it worked each time. So I'm a human lie detector.
Field tested and approved.
And you know what people say to me? They say, Jan, I would hate to be married to you. That's what they tell me, because they say you probably always are catching your husband. I say, true, because I would hate to be, because I'm always watching for body language. So if my husband moves his finger just a bit, I'm like, oh my God, Cecil, I know what you're thinking right now. So it's been a fun thing for me to know all my life. Or my friends, when I go out to dinner with them, they're going to start a story and they say, okay, Jan, what must I do with my hands right now when I'm telling you that story? So it's been a good science for me to have studied. I'm really pleased that I studied this in my lifetime.
And getting into studying this, like you said, obviously came from, let me know if my boyfriend is telling me the truth when he says, I love you.
That's
true.
Though,
because that's college. Clearly, you have a little bit of grown-up experience, or childhood experience, a little bit in Louisiana and all that good stuff. Please take it away. Hence why maybe that's where your sassiness and your classiness and the
I'm a raging Cajun from a little town south of New Orleans, Louisiana. So you kind of know our background. So I should be the one with purple hair right now, not you, because of where I grew up, which was so wild and crazy and dancing in the streets. So I'm really French. My parents were French, and my parents spoke French before they spoke English. My maiden name is Latiolais, Latiolais. So it got really French. So then what happened was that after I taught it in college, then I moved here to Houston, then I started teaching it here at the University of Houston. And then while I was teaching it during the day, people were asking me to speak in the evenings for different associations. So then I started speaking, but for 10 years, I combined college teaching and speaking. But it's like you, we have to make a game-changing moment. And I kept thinking, I need to leave teaching and just speak. But I was afraid to just go on into speaking, because teaching was such a salary that I was guaranteed, income and retirement. But then I said, if I don't leave teaching now and try to make a career with this, maybe I'll never leave it. So I left it about, I would say now 15, 20 years ago, and then just kind of started my my journey. And the first book I wrote is Let Me See Your Body Talk. So that book is body language. Look, you have the book there. Body language job interview, body language presentation skills, body language gender differences. And then I wrote one chapter on love in that book, how to tell if your spouse likes you. And so that led to my second book, was entirely on lovers' body language, called Freeway of Love. And then, oh, look, you have it. You have all my books. And then from there, people kept telling me how to spot a liar. So then I wrote the book called Judge the Jury. So that one deals with lying. And then from there, I did one on business. It's called Strictly Business Body Language. It's just sales and negotiation. And then my last book is called Poker Face, and it's the body language of poker players. So I think I've covered the gamut of body language. So let's give our listeners some really good facts about nonverbal, and to try to help them so that they understand how to project themselves really effectively on these screens. So the first thing I need to tell them is that to give the percentages. 55% of our communication is nonverbal, 55%. So that's why when someone first sees you, they'll say, do I like that person? Do I trust them? Do I want to have a conversation with them? That is 55% of our communication. 38% of our communication is our voice inflection and vocal tones, because I bet when your mom was angry at you, you could tell she was angry from the tone of her voice. So that's really effective on these virtual conversations and in-person conversations. Your voice tone can set the mood of a lot of meetings. And then the last percentage is 7%. And that is 7% of our communication comes from the words that we say, only 7%. 55% is nonverbal, 38% is voice inflection, and 7% is from the words that we say. That's where you get the old saying, actions speak louder than words. We say more with our bodies than we say with our mouths. And this is what you have to remember, is that the words that you say give math and your science and your history of that is that. So your words give information about your knowledge, your body language gives information about your feelings and your attitude. So that's the two differences. Words give information about knowledge. Body language gives information about feelings and attitudes. And people think, well, I'm pretty tough to read because I won't even move. But even if you're not moving, we can still read your body language if you have studied it, deeply and deeply enough. So what happened in March is that when I started doing and started teaching, on virtual nonverbal communication, I realized that it's kind of easier for me to read someone's body language from 6 feet away. I'm telling you, than when I could when they were sitting right next to me. Because from 6 feet away, I can see your head, I can see your shoulders, I can see your feet, I can see your body angle, I can see all of that about you. But then on these virtual conversations, every motion that you do is almost magnified. So if you have a twitch or you're not putting your shoulders just right, it's going to sit with that person just as well as if you were in person with them. So, when I first start teaching a class, I talk about hand motions, I talk about shoulder motions. So let me just give you 3 or 4 questions, and you could maybe let the people who are listening and watching try to answer them, or that I usually just kind of start off a specious way to help people get into it. So for number 1, I would do this. If you're in a conversation with the guy and this guy's listening to you, and as he listens, let's say he takes his right hand and just starts rubbing back and forth on the bottom of his chin. So I'm doing the gesture now while I'm just rubbing back and forth on the bottom of my chin. I would say this. When a guy does this and he's listening to you, this is a gesture that says that he is seriously contemplating what is going on. So I usually ask my audience, do you think that that's true? Do you think that that's false? And this is a true sentence. So this is a really, really good gesture. When someone rubs a chin this way, when they're talking with you or listening, it usually means they're evaluating what someone's saying. Men do this. Now, women, and you're in a perfect position for it right now, Anissa, you're doing what women do. Women typically point a finger up, and slightly tilt their head on the side. This is called critically evaluating. So women do it with a finger pointed upward, and men will do it while they're rubbing their chin back and forth. So when you're in a conversation with someone on these virtual screens, you have to give them encouragement to keep talking. And one way to give them encouragement to keep talking is by the way you look when you're receiving the information. One can be the exact way that you're sitting now, that you're sitting, with this, because you have to give them encouragement that you're listening. And even look, you just did one other gesture. You just nodded your head twice. And that's wonderful, because 2 head nods is an encouragement to another to continue speaking. 3 head nods says, you need to shut up now because I want to talk. So you get the differences? Like if you would go 3 times, then I'd know you would be ready to say something and then I should be quiet.
Wow.
You get the difference? So 2 is like, oh yeah, I agree. Oh yeah, 2 is like, yeah, that's good, makes sense. But 3 is the other person saying, I want to talk now. Even this, if you're watching someone and they take their pointer finger and put it in front of their mouth, their lips this way, and they're listening to you, that usually indicates they have something to say, but they don't want to interrupt you at that moment. So those are all pretty good hints to know when someone's having a conversation with you virtually. So also, let me give you a couple more questions. For number 2, let me try this one. People who tend to use their left hand a lot tend to lie a lot. Would you think that would be true? Would you think that would be false? A lot of people say false, but listen to the way that I asked it, because I did not say people who are left-handed. I said people who tend to use the left hand a lot tend to lie a lot. And that is a true sentence. It's not that left-handed people lie more than right-handed people. The only reason the left hand is used for deception is because the left hand is controlled by the right creative side of the brain. And you know that our brain is divided into 2 basic parts. Our right brain is creative and imaginative and daydreams. Our left brain is our math and our science and everything that we've ever recorded. So when we're telling something that we are making up, which is creative, it's coming from the right side of the brain. And the right side of my brain controls every motion on the left side of my body. So when you're thinking of hand motions, I'm going to put my hands up in the air and show you this. When I move my right hand, my right leg, my right arm, my right ear, anything I move on the right side of my body, it's my left brain that moves it. So my left brain moves anything that I move on the right side of my head. My right brain ends up moving everything. So it goes across the body this way. So when someone's telling something that's not true, it's coming from, I know it can kind of get you mixed up, but you know what's a good way you can think of it? You ever saw someone maybe who had a stroke? Maybe someone had a stroke and they can't move the right side of their body really good. That stroke didn't happen on the right side of their brain. It happened on the opposite side of the brain, because the left brain will control. If I can't move my right leg anymore, it's something that happened on the left side of my head. So think of it this way. The left brain controls everything on the right. The right brain controls everything on the left. So that's why you can see. So if someone would have a stroke on the left brain, that's pretty tough, because then you can't add, you can't remember history and science. If someone has a stroke on the right side of the brain, it's not quite as bad, because it just means that they couldn't control their emotions. Maybe they tend to laugh when they're at a funeral. So this is emotions on the right side. This is math and science on the left side. So that's kind of crazy to understand. But that's why when people are talking, that's why our hands move. Our hands move to help us get information that is located in our big brain here. Because if I would talk with you for 30 minutes and I couldn't use my hands, so I'm going to kind of stand up and I'm putting my hands behind me. So if I had to tie my hands behind me the whole time I'm talking with you, it would be really, really hard for me to organize my thoughts and get them out in a logical fashion. Once my hands are free and I can use them, that's what organizes your thoughts in your head so that you can speak with people. So that's why when I coach people, I say you have to use your hands when you're talking, because it's going to help you organize your thoughts, and people trust you faster when they can see your hand motions. So when I'm working and coaching people on the visual screen, every now and then you're going to have to let people see your hands, because that's how they're going to trust you faster. You can't make your hands crazy big, but every now and then you want to kind of bring them in front of you and let them see your hand, maybe bring your hand back. So let me tell you why people trust you when they can see your hands. Subconsciously, when you're first approaching someone on the street, for your own safety, subconsciously, you don't even think about this, but you're trying to figure out where their hands are. Because when you can see their hands, you know they're not going to attack you. That's why a police officer says, show me your hands, show me your hands. So because hands, think of the value of hands. They gave you birth, they held you when you were little, but they can also harm you or kill you. So subconsciously, when you first see someone, you don't even think about it, but you're just saying, oh, if I can see their hands, then I'll feel more safe around them. So that's why, isn't it great to know that little fact there? So that's why when you're talking with someone, maybe if you want to just every now and then, bring a hand back and so you cannot just have a screen from the chest up. You'll have to show some kind of hand motions. So let me give you a couple of hand motions that I think are working real well now for people in virtual conversations. And this would be my question number 3. Let's say someone is talking with you and you see their hands move out, their hands move in. And then when they're speaking, you notice they would do this. They would slightly bring the fingertips together and they would place their hands with their fingertips together, almost in prayer, but not really in prayer, but the bottoms of the hands are apart. They would bring them at their chest and just kind of hold them there and talk with you for a minute. Then maybe they'd say a few sentences, they'd bring their hands out and then show you their hands again. So this would be my question for number 3. When someone does this gesture, it's called a steeple. When someone does this gesture, it says that this person lacks confidence. Would you think that that would be true? Would you think that that would be false? And that is false, because steepling is one of the largest gestures of confidence that I could ever teach a group of people. So sometimes people are talking, their hands kind of come away from each other, and then they come back into this position where the fingertips are together at about chest level. Anytime you're going to see this kind of formation, it is associated with a level of confidence. And I don't have to see with all the fingertips together. Look, I'm just putting my thumbs together, but I would be listening to you. That's a steeple gesture. Maybe I would just put my my fingertips together and do this. But anytime you see this kind of gesture, Anissa, it's always associated with the level of confidence. Even this one. If I put my hands together under my chin, you see a steeple. When I even do this, but my fingers are not touching, this is a goalpost steeple. So, and so it's okay. If you're talking with someone and you don't feel right about putting your fingertips together, just kind of do it like this. You see what I'm doing? It looks like it's a steeple, but my fingers are not touching. And the research even indicates this, that when people are confident with what they are saying, their steeple gesture is done near their chest level. And when people are confident with what they are hearing, their steeple gesture is typically done down in lap level. So let's say someone's at a meeting with you and you kind of look down at their hands and maybe they're sitting there with their thumbs together, but their fingers are really low. You could still see. So if they're doing it while you're speaking, it means they're confident with what you're saying. If they're doing it while they're talking, they're confident with what they are saying. So it's kind of makes you crazy. And then I tell people that expansiveness of gestures will make you look a little bit more powerful, because the difference would be if I'm in a conversation with you, my arms are crossed, my legs crossed. See, when I stay real tiny, I look like I'm in a ball and I'm afraid. So if you want to make yourself look a little bit more confident, you can spread your gestures out a bit. I always think of Oprah. When Oprah interviews someone, she's not sitting there with her arms across in front of her body. Look how Oprah is. Oprah puts an arm on a chair and she's talking with you like this. So this is what I call expansiveness of gestures. So if ever you're in a meeting and you need to be in charge and let them know that you're the one in charge, you might have to do that, but then you don't want to make them too big for too long. Then you can bring them back, but you can't stay like this. Because when you look, you look weak and you don't look like you're in power. Like the way you're sitting is perfect with your arms on your chair, because expansiveness of gestures, it's like this. The more space you show that you need, the more powerful you can appear to other people. Does that make sense now?
Oh my God.
Just those.
Yes, it makes so much sense. And now I want you to continue what I've also heard already, and I'm certain the listeners, if they haven't heard, I want to point it out, is not only is she telling you, not only, Jan, are you helping us understand another's right now, you shared with us how to get them talking if they're not talking based on how we position ourselves. So that was body language is a two-way street. When I teach it, I try to teach it so that the person in my class can understand how to read another person. But by golly, I want you to take everything that I teach you and you use it on yourself, because that person who's watching you is going to make that judgment so quickly of you. And if they see that your shoulders look defeated, so with your shoulders have to be straight. Just as much as you can, try to straighten them out, because when you have unevenness of shoulders, see right now I'm lowering my right shoulder and raising up my left one. Unevenness of shoulders is indecisiveness of person.
So when you see someone staying like this too long, it's like, it means that they're going to take a long time to make up a decision. So you have to kind of come that your shoulders are just straight. And the reasoning that we use our hands are punctuation marks for our words. So always think why. I mean, you never would make a sentence and not put a punctuation mark at the end of that sentence. So when you're using your hands, and when I say it that way, doesn't it make more sense that a hand is a punctuation mark? So if you're going to show your hands to you, see what I'm doing? This is a 45-degree angle. My hands are kind of placed in a 45-degree angle. This is a sign of openness and acceptance. So if I'm talking with you, a good gesture that I could do is I would pretend that I'm holding on to an imaginary basketball, and I'm just saying a sentence, see what I'm doing here. And then every now and then maybe I'll lean forward and I'll pretend that I'm giving you the ball, the imaginary basketball. So that's me trying to engage you in my conversation. I'm saying to you, I have all this information in the ball of my hands, and I'm going to gladly pass it on to you. Because sometimes you don't know exactly what to do with your hands during the virtual conversation. So make sure that every now and then you would do a steeple when you're talking. Make sure that when you're expressing yourself, that you bring your hands maybe sometimes to them, then you bring them back. And it's okay to put your hands away for a little while. And then when you want to say something else, just bring them back. And it's better that your motions are flowy instead of choppy. You see these choppy motions? Because when your motions are like this, it's too severe. It's too severe. It's really too severe. So when I was talking about this, when my palms are ended up upwards, this is an openness gesture. This is openness. When my hands are flat up, this is begging you. You never want to be begging. You want to be more open like this with your hands here. So think about that. And then even in your arm positions, when your arms are in front of your body crossed, I'm crossing my hands in front of my body and not showing fingers, that's really defensive and it's negative. And it's as though someone's thinking, I don't care what you're saying because I'm not listening. So the only arm crossing that we allow and teach in college negotiation classes is when hands and fingers are visible. This is okay. Even only one hand showing is okay. Two hands showing is even better because, when you have at least one hand showing, like I'm doing here with one hand showing, it's as though you are in contemplation. So one hand showing is okay. Anissa, just do one hand showing if you're more comfortable. Yeah, just do one hand because this shows that you're thinking about what's going on. You're kind of contemplating what's being said, as opposed to when I'm tightly crossed this way, this says, I don't care what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So I teach people, if you're going to cross, make sure that they see that your hands are kind of visible. Make sure that they at least see that. But I would suggest that you don't cross when you are presenting. Never cross when you're presenting. When you cross, you're putting a barrier between you and the other person. So you want to try to bring them in and connect with them, even if it's a virtual screen. So you're going to have to keep your arm somewhere on the sides of you. So this is openness and this is closeness. And then with the hands. And while you were saying that, I wanted to show you a few nervousness gestures and maybe some gestures of dishonesty. You want me to teach them how to spot a liar?
Oh, yes, please do. Because you know what? You helped me spot a liar. You don't even know that your gestures, I was married at one point, not married now. Your gestures, I came home and I thought, man, I paid way attention to you. And I go, what?
What have I been doing?
Two strike, three strikes, four. I'm like, you're done, out. This game changing, you've already striked out. Goodbye.
Yes.
Yes.
You're gone. Yes. Okay. So let me give you a few gestures that maybe people can look for that would be associated with dishonesty. So then even as I teach you these dishonesty gestures and you're doing a virtual presentation, don't do any of these gestures because these are negative. But it's good if you're in a conversation, you want to catch someone in a lie, you look to see if they're doing these gestures. So this is what we have always kind of figured out in the body language world is that when someone is being deceptive, more than likely they're going to use their left hand to gesture. And while they lie to you, they quickly rub something on the left side of their face. And I'm going to teach our viewers what they would rub on the left side of the face. But again, let's recall, it's not that left-handed people lie more than right-handed people. It's only because the left hand is controlled from the right creative side of the head. So when I tell a lie, it's coming from right here. When I make up a story, it's coming from right here. And because of that, it goes to the left hand. So a couple of dishonesty gestures that are fun. Someone's telling you something and they know that part of this is not true. The first thing they're going to do, they're going to kind of sit back. They'll take their left hand and they'll kind of swing it in front of themselves and just talk for a few minutes. And then they'll take their left index finger, and while they tell you their lie, they begin to rub up and down the left side of their nose. So a liar usually does this. He goes up twice. The left index finger is pointed upward. So I'm going on the left side of my nose, and I'm going up twice. Then I am bending my finger, and I'm rubbing underneath my nose twice. They do it pretty quickly. They'll go up twice and then come back and do it underneath twice. When someone does this, you know what they're trying to do? They're trying to distract you from the information that's coming out of their mouth. So a liar brings his hand here so that you don't look at the mouth and the lips moving. They're trying to use this to distract you from what they have just said. And the other reason that a liar touches his nose is a physiological reason. Every time you tell a lie, you get a tingling sensation in your nose, and because of it, you end up rubbing it. I know you'll never touch your nose again with your left hand. If ever your nose itches, you need to come around and just kind of rub it here. But Anissa, I want you to think
it's real. Pinocchio is real.
It does come from the Pinocchio effect. Because, you know, every time you have a politician who gets in big trouble, they'll have them on the cover of Time magazine on the side and their nose is extended. They did that with Richard Nixon. They did it with Bill Clinton. So you see them on the cover and the nose. So this motion here that I'm doing, you see how it comes out after I finish doing the motion? It's as though the nose grows and grows and grows and grows. So the reason that the liar comes here and touches the mouth and touches the nose, it's from an old motion that we did as children. When you were a kid and you said something you should not have said, look, you took both of your hands, you probably pushed them back and like, oh, I can't believe I just said that. So we're still trying to do that, but now we're more sophisticated and we end up touching the nose just kind of briefly this way. So that is the exact reason why someone would touch the nose. And one thing that we can let our listeners understand is this. Let's say that you're listening to someone speak, and while they're speaking, you catch yourself doing one of the lying gestures. So let's say you would be saying something and then while you're talking, I'm just sitting here and I'm doing the lying gesture. It would mean that I feel that I'm being lied to. So if you notice that you're doing some of the lying gestures while you're talking with someone else, it means that you're uncomfortable with the story that they are telling you. So lying gesture number 1 is taking the left hand and touching the nose this way. Lying gesture number 2 and 3, both again require the left hand, but they come back to the left side of the face. Lying gesture number 2, and I'm going to come close to the screen. I'm just going to tug just on the top of my cheek, on my left side of my face. I either tug here or I tug right at the left eye in the corner. And when someone does this and they're talking with you, it seemingly says that they're thinking, do not see very clearly what I'm saying because I am not being fully truthful with you. And then the third one is this. They take the left hand and they end up rubbing the left ear this way. And when people rub the left ear and they're talking with you, there's no sense that someone does this anyway. But when they're doing this, they're hoping that you look towards the ear and that you're not looking at their mouth. So when they rub the ear, it's as though they're thinking, do not hear what I'm saying really clearly because I'm being fully truthful with you. So these gestures, the touching of the nose, the touching of the eye, the touching of the ear, these are called displacement gestures. Displacement gestures are gestures that people do that are not necessary gestures. Like someone may be taking their hand and scratching it. You see me doing this? That is a displacement gesture. Someone scratching on the neck while they're talking with you, that's a displacement gesture. Someone continuously fixing their clothing, that's a displacement gesture. Someone may be scratching the arm here while they're talking with you. It's not a gesture that's a necessary gesture. It's a gesture that's done because they're nervous about what they're saying. So that's what you have to think about. You know, like you have not done any displacement gestures since I've been on this call with you. But if I would notice you would toss your hair constantly, that's a displacement gesture. You see, gestures that are done to distract you from the message are displacement gestures. So then that's why when you're talking with someone, it'd be great to get a baseline, to get, a good reading on them. So if I'm questioning you about something that I think you lied to me about, I wouldn't first start talking with you about that. I would get a read on you at first, and I'd start talking about things that you're doing, things that you like, maybe your family, your job. And I would get a little read on you, and I'd say, oh, when she's comfortable, she leans her head to the right. When she's comfortable, she kind of leans in her body this way. So I'd get a little read on you. Then when I'd ask you a really hard question, I would look to see how much you deviated from your baseline behavior. So that's what, so never think that just because someone touches his eye, he's lying. That might be his baseline, but it's probably not his baseline. And also when I teach body language, I tell people that you must look for clusters of gestures together. So if I was trying to figure out if you were lying to me, I would not say the first time you touched your eye, say, oh, she lied to me, but I would take note of that in my brain and I would re-ask you that same question. If every time I re-ask you the question, I would get one of the lying gestures, maybe this one or this one or this one, then I know that you're probably lying to me about that. So you understand, you can't base it on just one gesture, honey. You have to make sure you have at least a cluster of perhaps 3.
I'm cracking up because you keep saying lying, and now I know the Pinocchio effect, and now my nose tickles. Does that?
Go ahead, rub it. Me too. Sometimes, Anissa, sometimes I'm on stage and I'm teaching this, and while I'm teaching it, my nose starts itching, and I'm thinking, I cannot touch my nose because then they'll think I'm lying to them. But sometimes things just happen to us. But you know, if you do it, you just do it quickly. So that's why it's not just one touch of the nose that says to me you're lying. I would look for you to do 2 other behaviors to make sure that I would get it correct, that you're being deceptive. So honesty is done with the left hand. Dishonesty. And honesty is done with the right hand. And the most sincere gesture we've ever recorded is bringing your right hand to your kind of like heart. When you bring a gesture to you, you're like bringing a sincerity to you. And so my hand is here with my fingers wide apart. It's not the Pledge of Allegiance. In the Pledge of Allegiance, our fingers are tight together when we say the pledge. In the honesty, look, they're wide apart. Just like near the beginning when you said, I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. This is the honesty gesture. Some people will show honesty, more so men, by doing a pleading motion. You know, they'll say like, I've been here all night, baby. Come on, you got to believe me. But you don't have to do this anymore. Just go like this. I love you. I love you. You look good. I've been here all night. So those are a few differences. But when you think about it, it's just a world of communication. It's almost as though you learn another language when you learn body language. You know, we speak English and French and Spanish and everything else, but why not learn body language? And when I teach it more so now, I teach American body language because we're here in America. We negotiate with each other, you know, probably in English. But at the university where I teach, we still teach classes in cultural body language. Every nationality does move their hands a little bit differently. And some nationalities are more familiar with some gestures that we in the United States are not quite familiar with. So I don't want you to think that touching the nose would mean the same thing in every culture, but in a lot of cultures, it does mean when someone does, or some cultures, they'll just point to the nose when they think someone has just lied to them. So the nose has a lot to do with finding out truth and deception. So even like tonight, when you watch the debates, won't this be quite interesting to look at some of the body language of what I taught you today? What do you think?
I'm excited because I have watched body language so much more since seeing you. And I used to not really pay attention to body language. I'd listen to their words. I'd listen to the tone of their words. And now I don't care if I'm staring at you when I'm listening at you, you know, because now I know the more attentive I am, the more I actually get from you anyway. So even if I am all attention, you'll understand it and feel the energy and stuff. So I use it anyway. And it has helped me so much.
You might not use it every day, but the good thing is that now I know with you, you have created an awareness inside yourself of body language. And that's what I hope when I present this or when listeners listen to this, that, you know, when they're watching someone speak, you know, now you kind of have an awareness. It's like, you know, when we had to first wear seatbelts, we knew we had to wear them and we knew about it. And then we had an awareness and then we all started doing it. So that's how body language kind of creeps up on you. And a good way to learn is to watch television with no sound. And if you watch television for a while with no sound, you could probably just from their body language, you could almost tell what they're talking about. Because if you watch a soap opera with no sound, especially if you're used to watching that soap opera, you got to tell what's going on that day. That's how incredible it is to understand this language. So it's really interesting. And even with eyes, and let's even tell this to our listeners that, you know, nowadays you're having to either look at the screen or you're looking at the camera. Sometimes if you're presenting, if you're doing a solid presentation and not in an interaction with someone, you're going to have to present by looking at that camera. If you are doing a presentation, let's say I'm doing a 1-hour presentation, I have to do it while I'm looking at the camera, because I want people to feel that I'm looking at them. Because in a face-to-face conversation, I would need to be having my eyes meet your eyes about 60 to 70% of the time that we're talking. So I have to still try to create that in these virtual conversations. So if you're the presenter, now if you're interacting like you and I are interacting today, we're going to have to look at the screen because I want to see your feedback when I'm talking and you want to see mine. But if you're the sole presenter, you're going to have to look at that camera when you're, teaching, is what I tell people. So
that's very good feedback.
Yeah. So just kind of remember that. And then, my favorite subject to talk about is lovers' body language from my love book. So maybe I can give our listeners one gesture that men do and one gesture that ladies do that say, "Oh, baby, get over here." Oh my God. You want me to share one with you?
I'm single. Okay. Can I get 2 of what men do? And,
I'll be nice to you. I'll give you 2. I'll give you 3, even if you need. So, okay. So we'll take men first. So in my book, and that's the one you have called Freeway of Love. The name, there's this one, On the Freeway of Love in my pink Cadillac. That's why I named this book Freeway of Love. I think it was, Roberta Flack, Aretha Franklin, On the Freeway of Love. So when I wrote it, I just wanted the reader to kind of travel this highway of romance. Like in chapter 1, you just see someone who looks good. Chapter 2, now you're looking at them, they're looking at you. So there's a whole eye protocol in this love stuff. Then maybe chapter 3, you're standing up and you're going to meet them. So the book is like you're traveling this highway of romance. So in chapter 1, I named the chapters in the book just a song also. Since the book is titled a song, every chapter in the book is a song. Chapter 1 is Let's Get It On by Marvin Gaye. Do we love that song or what? Ooh, chapter 2 is The Book of Love. So every book anyway, and I even put a chapter in there about lying. I listed the 101 most often told lies that lovers tell each other. I listed 101. Do you remember what's lie number 1? Lie number 2 is I love you. Lie number 10 is I've never done this kind of thing before. Number 1 is I'll call you or text you. That is the number 1 lie that lovers tell each other. Okay, so gestures that men do. First thing a guy does, if a guy sees you and he likes you and he doesn't know how to tell you that he likes you, but you want to see some nonverbals from it, one of the very first things he does, and I don't know you're going to think this is crazy, but you know what he does at first? He will reach down and pretend to be adjusting a sock or retying a shoe. That is the number 1 courtship gesture in America because it comes from the old saying, when 2 guys are talking, one guy would say to the other, "You need to see this girl. She will knock your socks off." Sock pulling is the number 1, and it all stems from that because that's what's called a displacement gesture. He doesn't quite know what to do right then when he's around you, but he's kind of nervous around you. So he's going to do several displacements. He's going to adjust the tie. That's a displacement gesture. He may pull on his sleeves at the cuff. That's a displacement. You see what I'm doing here? That's like he's preening. He's getting ready for you. He's going to probably push his hair back. So that says, "Yeah, baby, do I look good for you?" Oftentimes you sit somewhere with them and they have a cup in their hand or a can and they'll squeeze the can and let it go. Every time he squeezes that can, he's thinking, "I'd like to squeeze you, baby." So men do all of these gestures. Men expand like a peacock, when they see you because they want to make themselves look bigger. They might put a hand against the wall because they want to look like they take up more space. They're going to do a lot of adjustments to their clothing. And I've even seen it where a guy, and so he unzips the jacket while he's talking with you and then zips it up again and unzips it, or he has a button, he keeps fooling with the button. That's a displacement gesture. Something you're doing is making him really uncomfortable. And 2, sometimes an accidental touch on you is an indicator that he is interested, because we don't normally touch people unless we like them. So maybe your leg would brush his underneath a table sometimes, or maybe your foot would kind of brush his underneath the dining table. That is a courtship gesture here. It's like an invitation to play, an invitation to flirt. So you might want to remember those. And then ladies' gestures ladies are mostly done while she's seated, and a lady always crosses her leg towards the person she feels is most attractive. So if you're on my left side and I want you to find that I'm attracted and let you know that I'm interested in you, I would cross my upper leg towards you. So we always cross towards the people we want us to be with. And then after I'm crossed towards you to let you know that you need to talk with me now, I'll probably start to kind of kick my crossed leg. So I go in kind of in a rhythm, not a fast motion, because a fast motion is a sign of impatience. So it's kind of in a soothing kind of rhythm, like a thrust, girl, like a thrust. You understand what I'm saying? Are you doing it right now? And I'm doing it too. And then the next thing that we would do, that's a shoe in that says, you need to talk with me because I love you right now. I like you. I want you to see me, is when we dangle our shoe. Women dangle their shoes and men pull up their socks. Two biggest courtship gestures. Then after she's done all this with the legs and the feet, that's when she gets into her hair. Oh, and the more she gets into her hair, the more she's into the guy. So, when I coach women, I say, when you're on these virtual calls, you cannot be fooling with your hair too much, because that's going to undermine everything that you said serious in that conversation. You know how people swing the hair backwards? It's not good to be done because it's magnified now on these virtual screens. So you should not do it. And then ladies, clasping my hands together, upper cross knee. You see what I'm doing here? When a lady does this, gets her hands together and holds on to upper cross knee, it means that she's thinking to herself, I'd like to hold on to him, but I'll look prim and proper now and I'll hold on to myself. Women also tend to play with jewelry when they're a little bit insecure, or they'll play with this little dimple in the neck here. It's like, yeah, come on over here, baby. Oh, there's so many things that we do. And even the tilt of the head says, I find you attractive and I'm listening to you. So even a tilt of the head means a softer personality than someone with the head straight up this way. So when you're presenting, you want your head up straight. When you're listening, sometimes you need a tilt, because a little tilt says that you're interested in what they're saying. So does that give you some good information?
I am thoroughly impressed, and I am confident that our listeners will be sitting there at home trying some of these immediately. Put your hand up, and then they'll be like, okay, put your hand up. Which way did I put your hand up? You know what I mean? They're going to start questioning it. Yeah. Then they're going to be like, oh, shit.
So that's the thing. I want people to be aware of it, and I want people to be successful on their screens. And you can be successful. So now you can challenge yourself. Let me just try to appear as confident as I can on this screen. Let me show my hands every now and then. Let me sit up straight. Let me put my shoulders even, because you're having to sell yourself now. And you're having to sell your reputation by being as alert as you can when you're presenting, as, responsible or credible as you can. And you can do that with your body language.
And how did they get a hold of you, Jan? Clearly you saw I was putting up book after book after book.
I know. Oh, thank you for asking that. My website is Jan Hargrave, HARGRAVE.com. And so all 5 of my books can be bought from there. And also I have an online course that I wrote last year, and it's just simply janhargrave.com/course. And the course is great. It's 13 modules teaching everything about negotiation, body language. I put a test with each module so people can become almost certified in nonverbal. If you complete the course, you take the test, and it's virtual, and there's all kinds of visuals. And it's really good. I enjoy doing it. It's a great way to teach the skill now of nonverbal communication.
I love it. And man, listen, I have prayed for this day. I said, I'm going to work with this lady in whatever capacity. I don't know. As I said, because I saw you at Leadership, you're the only person I've bought their books.
Way to go.
Really, I know a game changer when I see a game changer.
Jan Hargrave, game changer. Our fingers spread out.
I love that. I love that.
My pleasure. I think we were born in the same womb, girl. I know that we're sisters somewhere in this life.
I totally agree. And so grateful that you're on, because I'm confident people would be able to take this and put it into application. And not only does it, we talked today about reading it over Zoom and stuff, but let's even take it back very shortly how this is, we aren't detached from everybody. So this is what we're talking about business. We still are connected to our kids. We're dropping off family members. So let's bring it back to this level also where when we are in proximity to people, a few more hints for our listeners, because right now we talk a lot about this.
We know that, we will get back to shaking hands. So we have to remember to do that. And the best kind of handshake you can give someone is a vertical handshake. Because when I approach you with my hand straight, vertically, it means that you and I have equal opportunity to speak. If I approach you, Anissa, and my hand is facing downward, that means I want to control the conversation. If I approach you, my hand is facing upward, that means I don't mind if you control the conversation. So you see people give you their hands in various ways, but whatever way they give it to you, and if they give it to you with their hands down, you can kind of turn it. The best way is the straight up and down one. And you have to make sure that web touches web, that when you're shaking someone's hand, that you touch indeed deeply this way. And one funny thing that I teach when I teach about shaking hands, the correct number of pumps in a handshake is 3. So sometimes I get, I'll pump 10 times, but it's really 3 times. So make sure that you shake hands that way. And another thing that I advise people, when you're in the presence of someone and you're speaking with them and you're first meeting them, you have to be that your belly button is looking at their belly button. That's silly, but I want you to remember that, because when my belly button is looking right at your belly button, that means I'm square in front of you. Because you want to let people know that you relish the time that they've even offered with you to shake your hand. So you have to be fully present in the conversation, and you can do that, with the belly button, meeting the belly button there. So just remember that with handshakes. And then what I have found lately is that when people are wearing masks, because a TV station called me a few weeks ago and I did a story on how do you tell someone's emotion even though they have a mask on. So a mask will cover this part of me. A lot of your emotions are shown from the upper cheeks into the forehead. So you can still read someone's facial expressions even though they have a mask on, because in a true smile, the eyes kind of crinkle in the corner. So you can tell when someone, this is a true smile, and a fake smile is like this. Look, it's called a grapefruit smile. Just kind of the lips are pulled back real tight. That's a fake smile. A real one is like, the eyes are going kind of crazy. So you can kind of tell the emotions. And to think of it, when we were in the hospitals or we visited doctors always wore masks, and we could read their expressions. So relate it that way if someone has a mask on. And there is a very good test that gives you a facial recognition IQ. It tests your facial recognition IQ. It's www.greatergood.berkeley, BERKELEY. It has 3 E's in it. I think it's EDU. So what they do is that they'll show you a picture of a face, and there are 3 choices. And you say, is this person angry? Is this person contemptuous? Is this person happy? And you have to decide which one. And so they show you 20 faces really quickly, and you have to see how many of these you get right. Most people in first taking the test will maybe only get about 12, 11 of them right. The more you take it, the more you're going to get right. So when we are training, I train at Houston Intercontinental. There's a division of TSA called BDO, Behavior Detection Officers. So I train some of those here in our Houston airports. They're the people who are in plain clothes, and they're just walking around. They're looking at, the commuters are looking at people, and they're trying to look for the face in the crowd that is not like the other faces. So that's where we use the wording facial recognition when we're trying to identify maybe someone who is destructive in a crowd of people. So try taking the test, and I can send you the email on that so that you have the wording right, so that if your listeners want to take the test. But it's good because there's only 7 basic facial expressions. And so they are anger, fear, contempt, happiness, sadness, surprise, and disgust. So if you know the 7 when you're having these virtual conversations with people, you can more readily bond with them, because that's an expression of anger that I see in her face. That's an expression of contempt that I see in her face. The test is real fun. I would suggest that you take it. So that's what I would teach people about. And the other thing is this. Nowadays, when people are wearing masks, and I don't know if they're wearing them in your state, but, we have to still say hello to people. So what I had done in March, I started doing this research about when people tell each other hello with the mask on, do their heads go up like, hey, or do their heads go down? Does your chin go up when you say hello, or does it go down? Like if I'm meeting you in the park and you can't talk with me, but you want to say hello, you don't want to verbalize it. How would you say,
Hey,
you'd go like, hey, hey. Well, people who put their chin up are really confident people. People who lower the chin are compassionate people. So you're confident. You go, hey. My husband goes, hey. I go, hey. I go with my chin down. He goes with his chin up. That's what made me start researching this. I'm like, okay, which people are going with their chin up? Which people are going with their chin down? But it's kind of funny to know. I want you to use it now when you're with someone.
because you have to think about it at first, and then you're like, which way do I do it? I don't know, actually, now. It has to happen naturally.
Yeah, you probably go, hey.
I think,
hey.
I believe I do. I think it's one of those up
I
things.
think you would. You look like a really confident soul. I know you probably go like, hey girl, what's happening, girl? That's probably how you do it. I do it too on occasion. Depends on who you're meeting. If it's someone elderly, you probably put your head down. If it's someone young, you probably go like this.
And a beautiful point, Jan, because of the awareness now of the ability to communicate so much at a deeper level based on who is in front of me, it's so easy for me to connect now because I can really mirror and model their behavior. I can mirror and model their body language. I can mirror it, and it says so much. And even with my behavior, I can move them based on me knowing these gestures.
Right, because let's say you'd see someone doing this. See, I'm putting my hands behind my head this way. This is a big sign of confidence, but it is too strong for someone to keep doing when they're on a virtual call. Because when someone does this for too long, it's as though they're thinking, I think I'm better than you are. So when you see these negative gestures, you need to counteract them. And the way to counteract maybe a negative would to get them to change their movement in their chair. So maybe you'd say to them, maybe would have sent them a handout prior to the meeting. You'd say, could you just pick up the handout that I sent to you and let's go over point number 7. So once you get them to come out of this negative pose, you can get them more in a positive pose. Every time you see a negative, try to get them into a positive pose. And it might be that you refer them to a sheet of paper or you say, can you move your mouse that we look at such and such, to get them to break from this. So if you see it, you got to counteract every negative gesture you see if you're trying to sell to that person.
Got it. And I would love for you to keep telling tips, but I'm telling you, it's already, and I've heard it before, and I've read your books, assimilated the information, get to see you and do it again. And even for me, I go, ooh, that's a lot to take in. So, you know what? I'm going to let them reach out to you, get your books, learn your course. And even in what they heard today, man, it's going to blow their mind. Game changer for every person when they choose to put these into practice. Just like in a game, you've got to practice them daily. Pursuit of excellence to be able to win the Super Bowl, to be able to win at understanding body language and communication, nonverbal. So thank you. I feel very honored and blessed.
My honor to be with you anytime. I loved it. And if we can help people change their lives and maybe for the positive and make the best of maybe a bad situation, I think that's what you and I are doing now. So I welcome the interview. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Jan. Love you.
Love you, baby.
This has been another episode of the Game Changing Podcast with your host, Anissa Acker. If today's episode has you stirred up with a fire in your belly, take action by subscribing and sharing this episode with a friend. And in the words of Rhonda Byrne, when we open our minds to the unlimited creative power, we call forth abundance and see and experience a whole new world. Go change the game.